A low-frequency alarm pulsed once, then everything went dead. The reactor simulation shut off. Lighting dimmed to red emergency hue. A heavy, unnatural silence wrapped itself around the USS Vanguard, 700 feet beneath the Pacific Ocean, as if the ocean itself had paused to listen. Except one man moved. Seaman Tyler Grant, age 20, barely 3 weeks into his first deep patrol, reached for a control switch on instinct. He thought he was helping. He thought wrong. Every head in the control room turned. The glow from the instrument panel lit up the pale disbelief on his face. And Commander Nathaniel Rourke rose slowly from his command chair, calm, cold, with the weight of steel in every step. Let us know in the comments which branch of the military you admire most. Rourke didn't speak right away. He walked forward past sonar techs, weapons officers, the XO. The only sound was the distant muted hum of oxygen circulating through the ship's lungs. He stopped in front of Grant. "You just canceled the reactor failsafe simulation," he said quietly. "Explain." Grant stammered. "Sir, I thought the console had frozen. I thought it was a real alert. You thought," Rourke interrupted. "In a drill designed to simulate thinking under pressure. You thought and touched live controls without a single verbal confirmation." The room stayed still. "You are in charge of sonar diagnostics," Rourke continued. "Not reactor overrides, not emergency ballast release, and not this." Grant's face was flushed, breathing uneven. "I understand, sir. No, you don't. Not yet." Rourke stepped away. "Reset the simulation. We're doing it again. Full sequence." "Aye, sir," came the chorus of voices. Grant stayed frozen in place for a long moment, then turned stiffly to return to his station. No one looked directly at him. No one said a word, but he could feel the judgment like water pressure against his ribs. The USS Vanguard was a Virginia-class fast-attack submarine, deployed on a long-range deterrence patrol near the Philippine Trench. She carried Tomahawk cruise missiles, a rotating nuclear payload schedule, and over 130 souls, each one trained to perfection, and Commander Rourke demanded no less. He was 46 years old, with 25 years of service beneath the sea. 3 deployments in wartime, 2 classified engagements, a reputation for control so tight it bordered on myth. But it wasn't myth that kept submarines alive. It was discipline. Rourke had buried 3 sailors across his career. He didn't plan to bury a 4th, especially not because of a nervous rookie. Lieutenant Carver, the executive officer, approached as the crew resumed their stations. "Grant's not going to last," Carver muttered. Rourke didn't look at him. "He will. Or he'll leave." "You want me to transfer him when we dock at Guam?" "We won't be docking for another 21 days. Carver raised an eyebrow. "You want him on this boat for 3 more weeks?" "I want him to suffer," Rourke said coldly. "Then I want him to survive it." Carver blinked. "You think he's worth the risk? We'll find out." Later that night, Grant sat alone in the torpedo maintenance bay, assigned to inventory as punishment. The echoing clang of his tools filled the room, a lonely symphony of humiliation. Petty Officer Ramos, a grizzled sonar chief with more than a decade under his belt, passed by on his inspection round. He stopped, leaned against the frame, and said nothing for a long time. Then, "You got lucky." Grant looked up. "Sir, your mistake didn't kill us. That's luck, not skill. I didn't mean to. Everyone who screws up says the same thing. Doesn't matter. What matters is this." He tapped his temple. "The next time it happens, you freeze or you fight through it. Rourke's watching. So is everyone else." Ramos stepped away, then added without turning, "You want to be one of us? Earn it." For the next 3 days, Grant was silent, focused. He triple-checked his diagnostics, repeated sonar protocols in his sleep. He studied the ship's internal architecture until he could draw most of it from memory, and no one spoke to him. He was in purgatory, but purgatory was better than exile. On day 6, Grant was assigned to assist with a deep scan test while the sub navigated through a known undersea volcanic zone. The seafloor topography made sonar tricky, unpredictable reflections, heat layers, and tectonic noise. "Listen carefully," Chief Ramos said as they calibrated the system. "There's a reason we run these drills in this region. You learn here or you never learn. At 15:06 hours, sonar caught something. Unknown contact. Possible propulsion signature." Rourke stood instantly. "Classification?" Grant leaned forward, heartbeat rapid. "Could be a Chinese Yuan class. Quiet. Diesel electric. Moving slow." Lieutenant Carver frowned. "If they're this close to our patrol route, they're shadowing us," Rourke finished. "Hold. Current depth. Maintain passive profile." But Grant was still listening, and something was wrong. The signature wasn't behaving right. The sound pattern didn't match the known cadence of a UN. There were irregular pulses, off-timed cavitation. He squinted at the data, breath slowing. "Sir," he said. Carver rolled his eyes. "Not now, Seaman." But Rourke raised a hand. "Speak." Grant pointed to the readout. "I think it's not a sub. I think it's a buoy. Relay. Maybe a decoy. It's broadcasting intermittent propulsion pulses. Too clean. Too artificial." Ramos leaned in. He frowned. "He's right," the chief muttered. "That's a ghost." Rourke stared at the readout. "Carver, confirm." Seconds later, the XO nodded. "Confirmed. Not a vessel." Rourke turned to Grant. "You just saved us from surfacing into a trap. That buoy could have flagged our position to real hunters." Grant blinked. "I thank you, sir." Rourke didn't respond. He just returned to his chair. But the silence in the room felt different now, less like judgment, more like awareness. That night, Ramos sat beside Grant in the mess hall. "You trusted your ears," he said. "That's rare." Grant poked at his food. "Still doesn't make up for day 1. Ramos shrugged. "Nothing ever does, but it's a start." He slid a folded napkin toward him. Written in thick ink were 3 words. "Don't break protocol." Day 7 began like any other. Sterile light humming overhead, the faint rattle of ducted air, and the groan of metal strained by pressure no human should ever feel. On the Vanguard, routine was the only comfort. It meant the sub was still intact, the crew still alert, and the ocean hadn't won, but routine rarely lasted. At 0412, an anomaly appeared on the sonar. Again. Not a buoy, not a ship, a low bandwidth vibration pulse, almost like an acoustic fingerprint. Grant was on duty. He stiffened when he saw it. "Contact, faint, intermittent signature. Bearing 285, he reported. Chief Ramos leaned over. "That's not a vessel." "I know," Grant said, "but I think it's deliberate. The signal was too irregular to be natural, too structured to be noise. It pulsed 3 times, paused, then 2 more. Paused again. It almost felt like code." Ramos narrowed his eyes. "Ping Commander Rourke, now." Rourke arrived in under 30 seconds, hair wet from his rack, boots unlaced. That was all it took for the entire control room to snap into sharp readiness. "Report." Grant spoke clearly. "Unidentified acoustic pattern. Doesn't match known vessel or terrain profiles. Possible code structure." Rourke stared at the screen. "Morse?" "Could be," Grant said. "But it doesn't match Navy frequencies." Lieutenant Carver joined them. "Enemy probe?" Ramos shook his head. "Too subtle. If they were tracking us, we'd be hearing broadband sweeps." "It's local," Grant added. "No movement. Stationary." Rourke folded his arms. "Passive mode only. Bring up last 3 days of sonar archives. Let's see if it repeated." The room moved quickly. No alarms, no shouting. Just tight, precise coordination, the kind that made submarines more weapon than vessel. 10 minutes later, Grant found it. Same pattern. Faint. Twice. both between 0400 and 0430, different bearings but similar range. Carver looked nervous. It's triangulating. Rourke was already ahead of him. Set a decoy course, increase depth by 10 meters, adjust reactor cooling rate to mask thermal signature. Aye, sir. The sub dove silently into colder water. Somewhere behind, or perhaps above, something was watching, and Commander Rourke didn't like to be watched. Later that day, Rourke reviewed Grant's logs personally. You logged the anomaly correctly, he said. Didn't speculate. Didn't jump to conclusions. Grant sat still across from him in the captain's quarters. I wanted to be sure, he said. Rourke leaned forward. Good. Confidence is earned, not assumed. Grant hesitated. Sir, may I ask something? Rourke gave a slight nod. You didn't correct Carver in front of the crew when he guessed enemy probe. Why? Rourke's stare didn't blink. Because authority isn't performance, it's restraint. Carver was wrong, but if I break him in front of the crew, I break the whole command chain. Leadership is heavier than it looks, Grant. Grant nodded slowly, absorbing every word. You'll learn, or you'll drown. 2 days passed. The Vanguard remained on modified patrol, steering clear of the triangulated signal pattern. Whatever was out there, it didn't seem interested in pursuit. But vigilance increased. Every sonar technician worked in shifts. Every whisper in the corridors grew tenser. And then, on day 9, the reactor power grid flickered, only for half a second. But that was enough. Control room, we just dropped 4% on the primary loop, engineering reported. Diagnostics? Nominal. Now, no cores logged. Commander Rourke was there in under a minute. His eyes scanned the readings. Manual override? He asked quietly. No record of one, sir. Rourke's voice dropped a degree. That's not possible.
He turned to Ramos. Full security sweep. Quietly. I want a personnel trace on every crew member's location between 05 Quars and 0505. Aye. That evening, a data audit revealed something chilling. Seaman Pollard, assigned to navigation, had
logged into the reactor diagnostic console remotely using an outdated access key. A key that had been deactivated 3 weeks prior. Grant was the one who discovered it. It was buried in the terminal ping logs, he told Chief Ramos. Someone hid the access request under an internal system sync. Rourke called for a quiet detainment. Pollard was found in his rack, headphones in, staring at the ceiling. He didn't resist. In the improvised interrogation room near the rear ballast station, Rourke confronted him. You used an outdated key to access a restricted system. Pollard stared back. I didn't do anything. You're not being accused. You're being given a chance to explain. Pollard's eyes darted, calculating. I was testing a system patch. You don't have clearance for that. Then call it curiosity. Rourke leaned closer. Down here, curiosity kills people. Pollard didn't answer, just stared. Until further notice, Rourke said, You're off the active roster. You'll remain under watch. Pollard stood slowly. You're chasing ghosts, Commander, and soon you'll be one. Back in the control room, Rourke spoke privately with Grant and Carver. Something's wrong with this patrol, he said. Too many coincidences. That signal wasn't terrain noise, and Pollard didn't act alone. Carver nodded. We need to assume someone on this boat is trying to compromise it. Rourke's jaw tightened. Or send a message, Grant asked. You think it's internal sabotage? Worse, Rourke muttered. I think someone up the chain knew. The air in the room thickened. Grant glanced between them. Sir, if I may, I could write a software script to flag any future unsanctioned access. No pings, no logs, just alerts to you and the chief. Rourke studied him. Do it. That night, Grant didn't sleep. He stayed in the diagnostics bay, working by red light, hands hovering over code and subroutines. Every line of command, every user credential, every ghost key from past tours, he scanned them all. And then, just past 0200, the alert system triggered. Not a breach, a login. Someone had accessed torpedo fire control, and that system required 2 authentication tokens, one of which had not been issued since the boat left Pearl Harbor. Grant felt the chill rise in his spine. He hit the encrypted relay to Rourke. 30 seconds later, the commander and Ramos stood behind him. "Where?" Rourke asked. "Console 4B, Deck 2, but only for 0.3 seconds, just long enough to ping the targeting system." "No camera feeds?" Grant shook his head. "The breach didn't happen physically, it was run remotely. Someone built a back door." Rourke's voice was barely audible. "And we let them bring it aboard." The next 12 hours on the Vanguard felt like walking a minefield barefoot. Commander Rourke increased internal security protocols. All access logs were reviewed hourly. Crew rotations were restructured. 2-man verification was now required. For even the simplest subsystem commands, Grant's intrusion detection script was expanded and silently deployed to 6 critical control systems. Still, no one said it out loud. But everyone knew. The Vanguard was under threat, from the inside, at 15:44 hours, an internal message was intercepted. It wasn't part of the official comms log. It was embedded in a diagnostic report, disguised as a line of corrupted data. A message. Just 2 words. "It's coming." Rourke stood in his quarters, reading the printout like it might catch fire in his hands. He didn't panic. He planned. "We're dealing with someone trained," he told Ramos and Carver. "Not just a rogue sailor. Someone with clearance. Someone who knows how to write code, hide footprints, and manipulate fear." Carver leaned against the wall. "Someone who wants you off balance." Ramos folded his arms. "Sir, respectfully, what if this is bigger than us? What if the objective isn't just sabotage? What if it's to test you?" Grant, standing silently by the door, finally spoke. "Sir, we're the only U.S. sub currently in this quadrant. If someone wanted to start a confrontation, quietly, this is the perfect bait." Rourke turned slowly to him. "Go on." Grant swallowed. "They don't need to sink us. They just need us to overreact, to fire at the wrong target, to surface in the wrong place, to look like a threat." Rourke nodded, cold realization sweeping in. Create a diplomatic incident, or worse. At 1912 hours, the Vanguard received a sonar ping, 1 pulse, mid-frequency, directional. Everyone in the control room went still. "Unknown source," the sonar chief said. "Bearing 119, no thermal wake. Could be a buoy or a sub running silent." Rourke didn't hesitate. "Silent running. Power down to minimum. Hold depth." Conning to 840 feet. The red lights returned. The hum of systems faded. Only essential life support remained active. Every man moved like a ghost. Grant stared at the sonar screen. "Sir, I'm reading something." "What is it?" "Secondary echo. Faint. Following the same bearing as the ping. But it's late." Rourke frowned. "Explain." "If it were a real sub, we'd get the echo faster. This one lags, as if it's played back. Artificially." Carver leaned over. "A recorded ping?" Grant nodded. "Someone's faking movement, projecting presence without actually being there." "Decoy tech," Ramos muttered. "Expensive. Advanced. We're not dealing with pirates." Rourke stood silent. Then, "Course correction. 6 degrees port. Dive to 900 feet." They changed course slowly, like sliding under the blanket of the abyss. 3 hours later, someone sabotaged the oxygen filter calibration system. It was subtle. The readings were manipulated, not enough to be flagged, but enough to eventually cause long-term CO2 buildup, a silent suffocation. Rourke was furious. "They're not trying to kill us in one blow," he growled in the briefing room. "They want erosion, doubt. They want us to destroy ourselves." Carver asked, "How do we fight an enemy who hides behind our own systems?" Rourke stared out the steel-framed porthole. Black ocean, endless pressure. Then he turned to Grant. "Find me the next move. I don't care if you have to dig into the sub's firmware from the keel up. Whoever this is, They made a mistake. They let you see it. Grant didn't sleep for the next 30 hours. He wrote a recursive trap, code that looked, like logging software but secretly recorded behavioral patterns in the system, searching for the sabotage signature. He modeled the attacker's style: methodical, minimalist, obsessive. Then he found something strange. At 0111, a login spike from a decommissioned officer ID, one that had belonged to Lieutenant Commander Ethan Keller, retired 3 years ago, and yet the credentials had just been used. From within the sub, "Sir," Grant whispered, "I know who they're impersonating." Rourke's brow furrowed. "Keller? I served with him in Bahrain. He must have had remote access back then. Someone copied his key and is spoofing it." Rourke's jaw clenched. He was one of the best network security officers the Navy ever had. "Exactly. So whoever's doing this," Ramos muttered, "learned from Keller, or is Keller." They looked at each other. That changed everything. The next day, Grant launched a honeypot protocol, a bait system designed to draw the attacker in. He created a fake vulnerability in the fire control alignment script, knowing that if the intruder touched it, their signature would be exposed. At 0303, the attacker bit. "Access breach. Fire control echo triggered," Grant said. "Location: Deck 3, electrical." Rourke mobilized the response team immediately. They moved with surgical precision, entering silently. There they found Lieutenant Paxton, communications officer, kneeling beside an open panel with a datapad in hand. His face was pale, mouth open in shock. "I was checking the relay. I thought someone else." Rourke raised a hand. "No more lies." The MPs secured him. In the interrogation chamber, Paxton crumbled. "It wasn't me," he said. "I didn't write the code. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Then, "Who?" Rourke asked. Paxton's eyes trembled. "It was Keller. He's retired." "No, he disappeared after Bahrain." "They said it was retirement, but he vanished. He told me the Navy was compromised. He said he had to act outside the system. Said this sub was part of something bigger." Rourke's voice went icy. "And you believed him?" "I didn't know he was going to sabotage us," Paxton whispered. "He said he just needed access, just to collect intel." "You gave him our codes," Rourke growled. "You gave him our crew." Paxton began to cry. "I didn't know what else to do." Rourke stood, steel in his voice. "Now you do. You'll tell us everything." With Paxton's confession, Grant was able to trace the signal relay Keller had used. It led to a submerged transmission device, hidden inside a sealed vent compartment near the aft battery housing, a transmitter, sending bursts of data every 6 hours, short, encrypted, undetectable by regular systems. They dismantled it, and then silence. At last, Rourke addressed the entire crew. They gathered in the mess, every man silent, eyes sharp, knowing the weight of what had nearly happened. "There was a breach," he said. "You all knew it. You felt it. Something was tearing this ship apart from the inside. Some of us broke under that pressure. Some of us rose." He turned to Grant. "And some of us proved what loyalty under fire looks like." Grant's face flushed, but he stood tall. Rourke looked back to the crew. "We are submariners. We live in silence, in darkness, in danger. We don't get glory. We get the truth. And this time, that truth was ugly. But it was ours to face." Paused. "We're alive because we did not panic. We followed our principles, and we held the line." The USS Vanguard didn't surface for another 4 days. It sailed silently, deeper into the trench lines of the Pacific, where radio signals faded and only sonar whispered. Commander Rourke knew they were still vulnerable, if not to Keller, then to the aftershocks of what he'd almost accomplished. Paxton had been transferred to a secure compartment, isolated under watch. He never resisted. But he never said Keller's full plan either. Maybe he didn't know. Or maybe he was still loyal to the ghost who had nearly taken control of a nuclear submarine. But one thing was clear. The worst was not sabotage. The worst was that it had nearly worked. On day 14, a new message came, this time from above, encrypted U.S. Navy command, emergency reroute. Return to Pearl Harbor, debrief upon arrival. No explanation. Rourke looked at the message, then at Carver. They know. Carver raised an eyebrow. About Keller? Or they suspect. They wouldn't call us back unless the quiet war had become loud. Grant didn't rest. Even after the breach ended, he stayed on full watch rotation, checking for anomalies, combing through logs, rewriting protocols, patching firmware. Chief Ramos stopped by the sonar station on the third night. "You're working like this isn't over." "It's not," Grant said, barely looking up. "You don't tear a hole this deep in a vessel's trust and walk away clean." Ramos nodded. "You're thinking like Rourke now." Grant paused. "Is that a compliment?" "That's survival." The Vanguard surfaced just outside Hawaiian waters. The crew stood in rotation to take in their first fresh air in over 2 weeks. The sun rose gold on the horizon, but there was no celebration, no flags, no music, just silence and the weight of what they had endured. Grant stepped out behind Rourke, who stood atop the conning tower, arms folded, staring at nothing and everything. "I never thought this is how it would end," Rourke muttered. "It hasn't ended yet, sir," Grant said. "No," Rourke replied without turning. "It's just changed." He finally looked at the young sailor beside him. "You remember day one? You almost shut down the entire reactor simulation." Grant managed a thin smile. "Yes, sir. Now the crew listens to you. Even Carver." Grant didn't answer. "You've learned what it means to serve under pressure," Rourke said. "Not just survive, not just obey. To carry the pressure." Grant said nothing. "You'll make a good officer one day." Grant blinked. I'm not sure I'm ready." "No, one never is," Rourke replied. "But the ocean doesn't ask." They docked at Pearl Harbor under high security. No media, no questions. 4 men in suits waited on the pier, Department of Naval Intelligence. They took Paxton in silence. Rourke handed them the transmitter, the logs, the printed audit trails. "You'll find Keller in the code," he told them. "That's where he lives now." One of the men nodded. "You just bought the Navy time, a lot of it." "I hope it's enough." Grant watched as the agents disappeared down the pier. "Do you think we'll ever know the full story?" he asked. Rourke didn't answer. He just looked at the ocean, as if it might one day whisper the truth back to him. 3 days later, Rourke summoned Grant to the officers' mess. When Grant arrived, the commander was seated alone at a table, a set of papers in front of him. His expression was unreadable. "I filed this," he said, sliding the folder across the table. Grant opened it slowly. "Officer Candidate Program Application." "You've earned it," Rourke said. "And it's not just about you. The Navy needs men who understand what war really looks like, what loyalty costs." Grant looked up. "What if I fail again?" "You will," Rourke said. "That's part of the job. But what matters is whether you report, whether you own it, and whether you stay." Grant nodded. "I'll do it." "I know," Rourke said. "That's why I'm asking." Their farewell came quietly, just before Grant left the sub to begin his training cycle. He turned in his bunk tag, the gear he had cleaned and folded with care, and the old checklist Ramos had given him on day 1. At the airlock, Rourke met him. "No. Speech," he said. "Just this." He reached out and handed Grant a patch. The Vanguard insignia, stitched on black with silent honor. "You don't wear it for where you served. You wear it to remember how you served." Grant took it, holding it like a medal. "Thank you, sir." Rourke nodded. "Go make the ocean nervous. Down here, mistakes don't just echo, they compound. They become part of the steel. On land, an error is a lesson. Underwater, it's a legacy. Seaman Grant came aboard with good intentions and shaky instincts. He left with scars of silence and wisdom forged by pressure. And that's what the Navy is. Not perfection, but persistence. Not certainty, but commitment. What would you have done in Commander Rourke's place? Or in Grant's? Would you have trusted the rookie or taken him off the boat? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, from deep beneath the surface where discipline decides survival, subscribe to Authority Watch and tap the bell so you never miss what happens when silence meets danger.